Hey guys, welcome back to CLOWNFISH TV. This is Kneon. We're going to talk about Marvel Comics laying off even more creators. That's right, it's pencils down for more creators at Marvel. This after they had already announced that they were laying off a third of their freelancers. We don't know specifically what titles are being affected, but we're going to talk about that. I think this is going to be an ongoing thing. I think Marvel is week after week going to look at their inventory. They're going to take stock of things. They've obviously got some pressure, I think, from Disney to cut as many corners as they can. And I have to wonder if the end game of this, no pun intended, is that Disney just shuts Marvel Comics down as a comic book publisher and outsources all of the comic book production to whatever companies are left. I guess. I mean, I would say IDW, but I don't think they're going to be around much longer. So before we get into the video, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We're over 100,000 subs, guys. Thanks so much for the support. We do have a play button unboxing video coming up. Hopefully we'll get to it in the next couple days. We did record it. We just have to get that all put together. And there's been a lot of news, so we've been trying to keep up with things. Unfortunately, most of the news has been bad. So we're watching the entertainment industry just like crumble before our very eyes. I mean, everything is in shambles. We talked yesterday about how bad off Disney is, and it's actually a lot worse than what they're letting on. That Disney actually is in worse shape, as I understand it, than what they're letting on to the public. They're trying to put on a good face for it, but what's really going to be interesting is to see how things go down at the next quarterly earnings call. Because a lot of people are analysts are looking at this and they're like, yeah, Disney's completely screwed. Without the theme park revenue, they are completely screwed. So they're going to start looking to cut corners. And one of the easiest cuts, frankly, is Marvel Comics, because the comic book industry in general is not in a good place right now. A lot of shops have shut down. Most shops, I think, have probably shut down because of being non-essential businesses, other than maybe the mail order sites or whatever. Maybe some shops are doing curbside, but a lot of them have shut down, and these shops live on very thin margins. They are surviving week to week, and there's no new material. Diamond decided that they were going to just bow out. They're going to bow out for the foreseeable future. They laid a bunch of people off. They decided that they were going to hold back on paying publishers. Now they're trying to come up with some wonky payment terms, but Diamond basically cut and run on the comic shops from my perspective. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because we're hearing a couple of things. One, got some publisher friends that said that Diamond is actually starting to fire up again, at least on the book side of things, and they are giving tentative dates as to when they're going to start resuming shipments of products. But they furloughed a bunch of their employees, and you know what? Some people are like, we're out of here. We're not coming back, including their marketing director. Diamond's marketing director exits for the healthcare industry. He's going to healthcare because healthcare is essential. He's probably not going to get laid off. This guy left the comic book industry entirely. Dan Manzer, Diamond's longtime marketing director, he's gone. I think I met this guy at a con once. I'm trying to think. I think I did. He looks familiar, but he's out of here. He joined Diamond in 1990, and he joined Diamond pretty much at the peak in the early 90s. He came in at a really good time, and he did leave the company in 97 for a job in gaming, but returned 10 years later as the marketing director. So he was there for a while. Maybe he'll come back if Diamond's still around. I don't know. But this guy's looking at the writing on the wall, I think, and he's like, healthcare is essential. Comic books are not essential. I don't know if Diamond's coming back. Let's get the hell out of here. And I don't blame him. I really don't blame him at all. So what does that have to do with Marvel? Well, a lot, because Marvel depends on Diamond to distribute its books to comic book shops, and they're not shipping any books. Not only are they not shipping new books digitally or in print, but they're not even producing all the books that they had scheduled to produce. And I think Marvel Comics is going to be a really easy cut for Disney as they continue to feel the financial pinch, because comics, the margins are very, very slim. And frankly, as I understand it, now I used to work on Disney Comics. I worked on Disney Comics for a number of years. I had contacts in the Disney licensing side of things, the publishing side of things. And my understanding was that Disney didn't buy Marvel because they wanted a comic book publisher. Obviously, they were interested in the movies. The comic book publisher just kind of came along for the ride. And Marvel has had to constantly justify its own existence because every other Disney property, Disney licenses comics out. They license their video games out. They don't develop stuff in-house because it's not cost effective for them to have the overhead. They'd rather have somebody pay them, take a chance on their characters and create books, and then they just kind of oversee everything. That's what they do with the Mickey Mouse comics, the Donald Duck comics, the Pixar comics. They've got licenses out there for Frozen to different publishers or whatever. And it's very conceivable, especially since they've been experimenting over at IDW, that they could just license out the Marvel superheroes to other publishers, whoever wants to pay to produce Marvel superhero comics, and they don't need a Marvel Comics publisher anymore. Especially if they can't even ship the damn books, especially if there are less than 2,000 comic shops left when things come back online, especially if Diamond goes down and stays down. We don't know what's going to happen yet. So this is coming from Bleeding Cool yesterday. Marvel tells more comics creators, pencils down, stop working. Marvel Comics has let more freelancers know they are to pause work on current Marvel Comics assignments. Previously, Marvel had paused 15 to 20% of titles being published as a result of the current global situation. I thought it was a third. Well, no print comic books are being distributed to comic book stores, digital comics being suspended, and the Comic Hub solution being rejected. Completely laughed out of the industry. Lots of publishers have asked creators to pause work for now. At the time, the chosen titles were described as titles linked to movie and TV launches such as Black Widow and Taskmaster, as well as launch titles that may need a more favorable publishing environment to launch in. A more favorable environment to launch in. Could they possibly mean the New Warriors? That would be interesting, because here's the thing. Disney looks at numbers. They obsess about numbers. And the New Warriors, the trailer has 212,000 downvotes to 4,000 upvotes. This has been a disaster. Nobody wants this comic. Even the people that are supposed to be represented by Snowflake and Safespace are completely offended by these stereotypical buffoonish characters. And this book is going to be an absolute shit show. Could this be one of the books that they're holding back on? I don't know. I'd have to look into it more. I don't know. But when you make comments like a more favorable publishing environment to launch in, and you look at the backlash to this, you gotta wonder if this isn't one of the books that they're like, yeah, you know what, let's just kind of table this for now, and we'll come back to it later if the industry ever, comes back online, or we'll pull the plug on this thing because it's such a disaster, and then we'll blame the virus. We'll blame the pandemic. Oh, it just, we had to pause work, and we really, really wanted to release this book, but we just couldn't because the virus. Everything is going to be blamed on this virus. So they're just going to quietly cancel it and say it was the virus's fault, that they're not going to move forward with what is probably the worst received comic book trailer of all time. Absolutely terrible. So back to this article. With another similar edict, the books will have to be across the existing line. In comparison, DC Comics has reportedly only paused a handful of titles, many of which hadn't even been solicited yet, and has also moved creators to a new Batman Black and White. That actually excites me a little bit. Digital first comic book, while new publishers Bad Idea and AWA have been upping their production and approaching creators who suddenly have a lot more time on their hands. But how long is that going to last? Is this venture capital? Because we saw how that worked out for Lion Forge. Lion Forge was basically bankrolled by venture capital, and within 2 years, they sold themselves to Oni, or they absorbed something. They merged with Oni. Somebody bought somebody else out. I don't know. Then they bought comicsbeat.com, The Beat, Heidi McDonald's blog, and then they gave it up because they didn't want to pay the bills anymore. I mean, who the hell knows what's going on over there? And they just laid a whole bunch of people off too. Lion Forge laid a whole bunch of people off. Which books and which creators have been affected at Marvel is not clear. Johnson has been told that it will apply to some X-Men titles. Well, how many effing X-Men books do they need? A lot of completed issues anyway, and Deadpool was another one mentioned. Punisher still going forward. Marvel Comics confirmed to Bleeding Cool that they have paused more titles for the same reasons as a few weeks ago, but declined to share the names or creative teams of specific titles as of yet, because you know what? Gosh, wouldn't that be a lot of egg on face if they decided to pause the New Warriors because of the 212,000 downvotes this terrible, terrible idea received on YouTube. And YouTube, you know, again, YouTube is the general public. You want to know where people actually are. Don't listen to these blogs, because these blogs, most of them are bought and paid for by the studios, by the publishers. You're not going to get a good beat on where the general public is, but you will get a good beat on what the general public thinks if you go to YouTube, because everybody uses YouTube. So you're going to have a better idea of what average Joe on the street or average Jane, what they actually think of crap like this. So yeah, and look, I'm going to give some props to Rich Johnston, who I've called him Rita Skeeter before from Harry Potter, but he's actually been doing a pretty okay job of covering the collapse of the comic book industry. Now, what you're probably not going to hear about, and actually you may not hear from Rich Johnston for much longer, because not only is the comic book industry collapsing, which is the bread and butter of Bleeding Cool, but the advertising revenue is drying up across the board. Pretty much whatever segment is affected by the shutdown, the advertising revenue is drying up. So if Bleeding Cool, I don't know exactly, I know they got a shit ton of ads on their website, but if most of their advertising revenue comes from comic book publishers, and comic book publishers can't pay their bills, they're not going to be spending money on advertising. If there's no money for advertising, then there's no way to pay freelancers, there's no way to pay Rich Johnston. We might actually see a couple of these websites go under. In fact, we've already heard that Comic Book Resources is cutting back on its pay. I've heard this from a couple of different people, that instead of paying them $5 an article, they're paying them like $4 an article. But they're already starting to feel the pinch. We talked about the LA Times. It has virtually no ad revenue coming in because most of their ad revenue came from Hollywood. And Hollywood's not spending money because Hollywood doesn't have it. And this totally ties into Marvel Comics, right? Marvel Comics is owned by Disney. Disney is hurting worse than any other studio out there right now. I mean, they really are, because Disney's, most of their revenue comes from the theme parks. The theme parks are shut down, and definitely Disney is massively in debt. They bought Fox. They had to go borrow $12 billion from different markets just to be able to keep the damn lights on. They're laying off like 77,000 theme park workers because they don't know what to do with them, because they don't know when they can open the theme parks up again. All of their movies have been pushed back. They've got Disney Plus, and they've got subs coming in for Disney Plus, but there's jack shit to watch on Disney Plus unless you're an old head that likes a lot of old Disney movies, which I am, admittedly. But not everybody is. They're not a direct competitor to Netflix. They don't have the catalog that Netflix has. And this is something that was going to be a slow burn for them, and now they're going to get burnt because they spent billions of dollars on it, and it's not picking up fast enough to generate any meaningful revenue for them when they're this far in the hole. So they're going to start looking to cut things. And I've been predicting that they were going to cut Marvel for a while, going back to 2017. Now, this is a painful subject for me. This is the Kingdom Insider. This is a blog that I started, that I helped start, that my wife and I worked on for a number of years, and that our partner pushed me out of last year, changed all the passwords, brought somebody new in to run it, and took our names off of all of our articles, years worth of work. They took our names off of it. Not only that, but after they had pushed us out of the website, okay, they went and they tried to trademark the name of our podcast, which we were also using a website for. Some of you have been following the drama. We've got a lawyer involved, but they attempted to maliciously trademark our podcast name, probably to hit us with a cease and desist, so we couldn't even go do our own thing on our own, because we were this website. Geeky and I were this website for a number of years. We were the face of it. We did all of the content, and we got pushed out by our partner. Anyway, the only reason I'm bringing that up is because I did a series of articles, and this is kind of what got us into talking about comic books on Clownfish TV, was a situation with Marvel, and knowing how Disney works, and knowing that Disney for quite some time has wanted to just outsource these characters because a House of Ideas is worth jack shit. Frankly, they're not bringing the boom like they did 10, 20, 30 years ago. They're kind of out of ideas at this point. Obviously, they have completely run out of good ideas, right? So the theory is that they're going to look to wind down Marvel Comics, and that they're going to just outsource the comics, you know, just like they do all the other books. I mean, I worked on Disney comics for years. I worked on mostly on Uncle Scrooge comics, and that's what they did. They would just, you know, give the license to whatever publisher, and that was that. And as I understand it from sources in Disney, comic books mean less to the Walt Disney Company than t-shirts. And that's when things were good. That's when Disney was on top of the world. That was when they could do no wrong. You know, 3 years ago, they were even looking to streamline their comic book production. They tried with IDW, and I think they pulled back, not because of the quality of the books, but because IDW themselves is in deep shit financially. That's what I think. But yeah, they took my name off all these articles. They took my wife's name off of all of her articles, but I did write probably 70% of the content on the site. So, and in fact, you can prove it. Go out to Bounding in the Comics and they link to it. There we go. There we go. Look at that. Look at that. Back when my name was on it. Anyway, that kicked off a whole thing. Everybody started, you know, talking about like, oh my God, could Marvel Comics actually shut down? Like, hell yeah, Marvel Comics could shut down. You know, not long after I wrote the article, Axel Alonso got gone. They started playing around with IDW. And again, this isn't rocket science. This is just, you know, knowing how Disney thinks. And again, this is when times were good. So I'm telling you, push comes to shove, Disney is going to shove Marvel Comics out of the damn window to save as much money as they possibly can, because Marvel Comics is at the bottom of the totem pole. Not Marvel Studios. They love Marvel Studios. To Disney, Marvel Studios is Marvel. That's the real Marvel. Marvel Comics is just this publisher that came with the deal. You know, I hate to use the term because Geeky hates it, but redheaded stepchild. Like, they didn't really want Marvel Comics. They just got stuck with it and they didn't know what to do with it. So they just kept it running all these years because it really didn't hurt them to do so. But now that Disney is hemorrhaging money at this point, they're going to look to cut. And I don't think that's going to stop with just them telling people to put their pencils down. I think it's going to stop when Disney decides they don't want to be a comic book publisher anymore, because there's no damn reason to publish comic books anymore, because who are you going to sell them to? You know, who are you going to sell them to? Shops are going to be closed. People might move on to other hobbies, and you know, they're just not interested. Now, I did, when I was doing some research for this video, come across an editorial by Josh Blaylock from Devil's Due. It's a pretty long article. It's worth a read. But the interesting thing is he's pointing out what we've been saying for a while, a lot of other people have been saying, is that manga is actually on the upswing. What I'm concerned about, I'll tell you the truth, I'm concerned about Tokyo Pop 2.0. Not that Tokyo Pop was a bad publisher per se, but we had a lot of Amera manga pop up in the early 2000s that kind of crowded the market. And what I'm afraid of is all these displaced Marvel Comics people, DC Comics people, small press people are going to be like, manga, that's the ticket. And they're all going to start cranking out Amera manga. And it's going to flood the market because they're all going to hit manga. They're all going to hit children's graphic novels, you know, not realizing that Scholastic is kind of dead in the water at this point too. You know, they're not doing nearly as bad as the direct market, but hey, the schools were all closed, right? Who are they selling to when the schools are all closed? But I think that we're going to see a glut of creators try to jump on to that life raft too, in addition to crowdfunding, in addition to trying to YouTube, in addition to trying to podcast. I'm already seeing it. I'm seeing everybody and their brother starting podcasts and YouTube channels. And I'm like, you're like 3 or 4 years too late. You needed to start this back in the day. Instead of throwing shade at people doing it, you needed to start doing it yourself, and they didn't do it. So now they're all going to try to come over here, I think. They're all going to try to make manga. They're all going to try something else because they never thought about a future without the direct market, and it's staring us in the face right now. So I'm going to wrap this one up. Please subscribe for more pop culture, news, views, and rants, and we'll talk later. Hey guys, thanks for watching Clownfish TV. Please consider supporting the channel. Go to clownfishsupport.com. That's clownfishsupport.com. And if you want to join our community, go to clownfishtalk.com. That's clownfishtalk.com. Please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. We will talk to you next time.